Hello everybody, this is Ken Faulkner. Got another knife video for you. It's kind of a combination of knives from my collection and preferences, because when I was talking about preferences, one of the things when you're looking at preferences on knives that you select for your collection, it's what you use your knives for. There was a lot of different categories that I was talking about, like hunting, fishing, camping, stuff that I haven't really ever done any hunting, so I could never really claim to even say. I could say what other people say about it, but I can't really say from any experience. I've done some camping, but I don't feel like I'm an expert at camping. It was mostly like car camping, a little bit of backpacking when I was a kid, but that was a long time ago. More of my experience, especially in my 20s, which was a long time ago as well, had to do with working out in an industrial type environment. The company I work for, we build equipment, and at the time we had our shop out there. So we were out there in the shop working on things, and we did testing of our equipment. So I was part of the test department. I actually came on in the office, but then they said, hey, it's a great idea to have you go out in the test department. Probably because I was really young and they needed somebody to work like 12 midnight until 8 in the morning shifts, which I did quite a bit of. Sometimes 12-hour shifts, like, I'd take a 12-hour shift, another guy would take, because we didn't have that many people. We did what we needed to do, get the job done. And that's very much that kind of work type environment mentality. You need to get the job done, and so you need to have tools to get that job done. And knives are for the most part, especially nowadays, a tool. They may have been more of a weapon back in the old days, but we have more sophisticated weapons. It's not going to be your go-to if you have some situation where you need a weapon, but it definitely is a tool that, there's very few things that can replace a knife for doing certain types of tasks. So, modern day work environments, EDC, you just want to have a knife with you in case you need a knife. Kitchen, definitely a place where probably more people use knives in kitchens. I know I do. So it's a tool there. But I did start my career early, doing a lot of technician type work. So we were setting up test stands. We were running plants and then repairing them, wiring up equipment. All these kind of things took many different tools. I started out with a very small toolbox and built my way up. As I saw the need for more tools, I built things up, and a knife was always there with me. Usually, it was something more like this that I had on a belt rather than in a pocket. This is the kind of knife that I would have carried. Right now, what I got, I don't have that old knife. I wish I had that old knife, because that was, I don't know, it's probably like in a toolbox over at my old house, and I gotta go rummage through it. It's the ex's house now, so she's got it. Maybe I'll find it one day. That'd be awesome. But it was a backlock type knife, and this is the Buck 110, just a classic knife, definitely heavy duty knife. Now, obviously, you can see I'm wearing gloves today, because a lot of times when you're doing this kind of work, you are wearing gloves. In fact, I started doing the video and cut myself and thought, hey, I'll just put these gloves on. Now, these are gloves that I use when I'm out in the field. So still occasionally, even though I'm more of an office dweller now, I am going out to the field for things that I've designed and worked on. So I have a good knowledge of it, especially when they're putting it and installing it. And I'm not afraid to get dirty. I'm not afraid to do stuff. In fact, I enjoy it because it kind of brings me back to those times. It's just good to work with your hands, of course. And then I'll do things around the house, that kind of stuff as well. So some of the things that I like for work knives, you can see all these. There's really not a lot of fanciness here. Some things have a little bit of flair here and there. but for the most part, they're pretty basic. They're decent sized knives, full size knives, what I would tend to call them. This one here is the Cruiser from CRKT. And yeah, I don't know if they still have these available, but this is a really good knife. It actually has a little lock here, which, if you're going to be doing a lot of cutting, I'm not cutting that much stuff anymore, so I don't normally use those secondary locks, but it does lock so it won't close on you if you're doing a lot of work with a knife, as you might do in an industrial type or work type, maybe like construction. I never worked construction, but that kind of thing, you might have to use them for a longer period of time, so that might be advantageous. Good size handle. It's the user interface. I mean, we're used to having user interfaces on software, computer programs, our phones. Even our TV's got a remote. So those things that connect your physical body to the tool, be it electronic or in this case it's an actual physical tool. So if you have a wrench, you want a wrench that has a good handle on it. A screwdriver, you want something. I mean, you need different size screwdrivers for different jobs. The same thing with knives. But I do tend to want, as an overall tool for use in these kind of environments, I want something big. And I like to have something that has some kind of contouring to it, so that when it's in my hand, it kind of locks in place. So I'm not going to slip slip in the middle of a cut or anything like that. So also, I don't want something that's a really expensive knife, because I'm putting it through a lot more stress than I would normally put a knife through. And therefore, the chance of something breaking, like that old knife that I wish I could find, it had the tip broken off about right here. And I still used it, because I wasn't doing a lot of stabbing. It was more cutting type things. But I used it for quite a while, just like that. So anyway, you can see you want to be able to use it with a gloved hand. And I really didn't, when I was doing this list, I didn't really break them out until just now. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to have the gloves to kind of test them out. So we got the Mohawk, definitely a budget knife, and you see it works. I'm able to open and close it one-handed. That's important too. You want to be able to access that knife. You want to be able to get a hold of it, pull it out of your pocket, open it, cut, and put it back. Most of the tasks that I do nowadays, now in industrial, you might have more lengthy cutting tasks you need to do if you're cutting up a lot of material or something like that. But for the most part, for me, when I'm getting a knife out, I'm opening it, cutting, putting it back, and I want to do it all one-handed. I might be holding on to something that I need to cut. I want to be able to hold on to it, cut it, and put it back while I'm still holding on to that item. So I think that's important. So there's the Mohawk from Rosecraft. Real good price, solid design. Mass Fashion doesn't like it, but that's okay. Because it doesn't have the greatest detent, but it works really well. Ask Scab about it. He'll tell you. He knows. And that guy is definitely an example of a guy. He would be the guy, if I was going to ask somebody's opinion on what's a good work knife, that's the guy I would ask. This is the Ontario Rat 1. Obviously, very little needs to be said about that knife. It's just stood the test of time. It's proved itself over time. We got some, like a 6-leaf, which is a knife that's one of the less expensive Chinese-made knives. It's got G10. G10 is super strong material, so this can get thrown around, beat up, and it's gonna handle it. It's got a back flipper. A lot of these will have back flippers. Some of them will have just the thumb studs, but back flipper also is really good when you're wearing gloves, right? Some people have trouble with their hands. I've heard people make comments saying that they can't really use thumb studs, and that's a real thing. I mean, it's not like we are all the same. Some people have more limitations than others, or just don't have the ability to use like a thumb hole or something like that. So yeah, this is 6-leaf. It's the SL09 D2 steel. It's tool steel. So tool steel. Nice strong steel. Got to make sure you keep it, you know, oiled up and whatnot. But see here, I couldn't do the flick with the glove, but I got the back flipper. And as long as it's a decent back flipper, it's not like one of those little teeny ones that, which is fine when you don't have gloves on, right? But something substantial is what you're going to want for work environment. I got this one out, the Banshee from Dam Designs, because it does have that scraping kind of tip. Yeah, it reminds me of my old knife. But this is actually designed that way, but it does have scraping ability, which is something that you may need to use in industrial work type environment. And it's well built. Again, G10. G10's pretty common in here. Definitely a good work knife handle material, especially if it has a little bit of texture, which this one does, this one does. They all, so far, have some kind of texture. This is a Sativian. I mean, we know that the Sativians tend to be a more affordable knife. And if this thing breaks, you can just replace it with another one. And it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. Obviously, when you're at a work site and you're in the middle of doing something, you don't want to break a knife. But this is pretty solid, a solid build, thicker stock. Not the thickest, but it's thicker stock. Again, I got area here. My whole hand fits, and it locks in because of these finger grooves. Works out real well. So this was the, what did I say? There was a Sativian 132. Now this one does have a little bit of flair to it, but I mean, it's not adding to the cost, so that's good. Bestech. So this is a Bestech Ascot. This one's one of the more expensive ones. This is $100. So this one, there's a couple here that are a little bit expensive, but it definitely works as a good work knife. You may, and it's a little more fancy in the handle and stuff like that. I think it would definitely work well, but you might not want to torture test it so much, possibly. So it's just something you got to think about, you know. Fixed blade obviously is a good knife. Now, I mean, I tend to think of them more for hunting and camping and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's great because when it's on the belt, I don't have a clip on this one, but it's on the belt. You can get it out pretty quick, use it, and then put it away. The only thing about having it dangling on a belt is it might get in the way while you're climbing and stuff. You know, tight areas, that may be an issue possibly. But this is the Work Tough Gear Nomad Bushcrafter. Very solid knife. Definitely can do some work. Absolutely. Clicks in, holds very well. You don't want this thing falling out while you're climbing around, because if you're working, I remember when I used to work, we used to climb up on stuff, into stuff. You know, that was part of being the young guy out there, is I was able to do that stuff back in those days. That's not so much a thing that I could do now. Got a nice hole in there to drain it. I got the Adventure from Very Good Knife Company. Also, look at that stock. I mean, this is definitely, these are the kind of knives that if you had to do a little bit of prying, you could probably feel safe in doing it. You know, but you got to think about the cost of the knife and whether or not you're willing to take that risk. This one here being on the belt, it kind of hugs into your body a little bit more than I think a fixed blade does. They tend to get caught on things more often when you're in tight environments. So that's why maybe those would be more of a hunting type thing, or I mean, a hunting, camping, fishing type thing, because you're not necessarily climbing through equipment and stuff like that. Yeah, but again, two-handed opening is the downside on this. I mean, I think if you're good at it, you might be able to do it one-handed. But back when I was working, that's the kind of knives that I had. So anyway, this is another one. This is a great knife, Sincut. This is the Sincut Actium. Yeah, I've always just really liked this knife. You know, it's got that that Bowie kind of Bowie kind of look to a little harpoon. So you can get up here, and do some good pushing for cuts. Yeah, this is a great inexpensive knife. Works really well. So I felt very confident having that in a work environment where I'm going to put it to some test. Now we got the Cold Steel Fenwolf. This has got that Scandi grind, but sometimes that Scandi grind is going to come in very useful, and it's got a good strong lock. So a lot of these liner locks, they may be a little bit more questionable if you're really doing hard stuff with it, but when it comes to the back locks, there is that one advantage that I think it's a bit stronger of a lock, and it turns into more of a fixed blade once you get it out. But you still can, this doesn't have a back flipper, but you can still get it with the thumb studs. They're big enough so that they really, I'm trying to do the liner lock, but it is kind of a two-hand close, especially when you have gloves on. So there is, a give and take there. Some traditional, this one does have a lock. This is like a slip joint kind of spring it has, but it does have this little brass, little locking thing. So this is going to be two-handed, but it is, a lot of the slip joints are very small and probably wouldn't work as well for all around work type activities. This one is actually called the work knife. So, it's kind of, that may have had some influence on me putting it into the list. But, even though it's a slip joint, I still think that it is something that could be used in a work environment. Two-handed more so, especially with gloves, but nice and strong, and it does lock in this case. Let's see, and I think I'm getting close to the end here. I got one more, which is the Manley, and I've talked about that recently. It's got these multiple stops, so I think even though it doesn't actually lock in place, it's going to click here. So you got plenty of time before it actually gets to your hand, even if here you're getting darn close, but you got two stops before you get to the point where it's going to do anything. But it has excellent grip on it, and it's a full size, fit in your hand, do stuff. The blade shape is really good. So yeah, I think that depending on the kind of work, would be a possible option. So anyway, got all these tough knives. I mean, they're all well built and tough. They can handle stuff. I'm not afraid to use my knives for sure. Maybe the Rockstead wouldn't be something I want to take out to a job site. But most of my knives, like below 100, the most expensive one here, well, the Very Good Knife Company knife, this guy right here, is probably the most expensive one in the list. Yeah, so that's about $190. Make sure I'm right on that one. Yeah, 80 CRV, but it's just so well made. I mean, this is basically like a custom knife. I know he does a bunch of them all at once, but he's doing all this stuff by hand. So I mean, you're paying a little extra for that quality, but it is definitely quality. But for the most part, most of these are under $100. And then there's this is the cheapest one is $15. That's probably the Rough Rider. The Rough Rider's $15. So you could definitely have, like, how many of them can you buy, for the price of one of these other knives, So anyway, I thought it'd be a fun thing to talk about. I mean, it kind of goes with the preferences, and it is collection stuff that I probably wouldn't show some of these very much, because they're just solid knives, but they're not really fancy and not really flashy. Some of these you do see quite often. A couple of these I've had individual little videos on. So all right, guys, that's it. Got to take the glove off because I got to do the user interface on my phone and shut it off. But that's the video for tonight, and I will See you guys coming up real soon with the next one.